My name is Eva. I'm 35 years old, and I never imagined my life would shatter in a single moment. After my surgery, the hospital released me a day early. I was excited to surprise James, my husband of 10 years. But when I got home, I heard strange noises from our basement storage room. What I saw there between my husband and my 22-year-old niece Sophia destroyed everything I thought I knew about love and family. Instead of screaming, I simply smiled and walked away. But that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of my response. If you're watching this from a place where you've been betrayed, too, leave a comment below. I'd love to know I'm not alone. Let me continue my story. I always thought I had built the perfect life. I worked my way up to become a marketing executive at one of the most prestigious firms in Chicago. It was demanding but rewarding work that I genuinely loved. I took pride in crafting campaigns that resonated with people and drove real results for our clients. James and I met at a charity gala 12 years ago. He was handsome in his tailored suit with warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. As a financial advisor for wealthy clients, he exuded confidence and stability. We dated for 2 years before getting married in a beautiful ceremony by Lake Michigan. For the first 5 years, our marriage was everything I had dreamed of. We traveled, built our careers, and created a beautiful home together in a brownstone with a small garden that I tended on weekends. The trouble began when we decided to start a family. Month after month, the disappointment of negative pregnancy tests took a toll on both of us. After 2 years of trying naturally, we consulted fertility specialists. The tests were invasive and uncomfortable, the hormonal treatments made me emotional and bloated, and the scheduled intimacy drained the spontaneity from our relationship. Still, we persisted. 3 years into our fertility journey with no success and dwindling insurance coverage for treatments, the strain on our marriage became palpable. James started staying later at the office. Our conversations grew shorter, more practical. The emotional connection that had once been our strength seemed to be fading. Still, I believed we would find our way back to each other once we got through this rough patch. Then came my diagnosis. What I had dismissed as normal menstrual pain turned out to be uterine fibroids. My doctor explained they were likely contributing to our fertility issues and recommended surgery. I was terrified not just about the procedure, but about what it might mean for our chances of having a child. To his credit, James stepped up when I first received the diagnosis. He came to appointments, asked questions, and held my hand when I cried. He assured me that we would face this together, and for a while I felt our connection rekindling through adversity. Around this time, my niece Sophia reached out. She was my sister Margaret's daughter, 22, and recently graduated from college with a degree in communications. Sophia and I had always been close despite the strained relationship I had with my sister. Margaret and I had grown apart after our parents died, disagreeing on how to handle their estate and harbouring resentments that never fully healed. Sophia was looking for an entry-level position in marketing and asked if I could help. I was touched that she came to me and eager to support her career. She was bright, enthusiastic, and reminded me of myself at that age. I arranged for her to interview at a few agencies I had connections with. When Sophia mentioned she was struggling to afford Chicago rent while job hunting, James suggested she stay with us temporarily. It seemed like perfect timing. With my surgery scheduled, we could use help around the house during my recovery. Sophia moved into our guest room 2 weeks before my procedure. In those 2 weeks, I noticed subtle changes in James. He started wearing a new cologne. His work shirts were more carefully selected. He guarded his phone more closely, taking calls in another room. When I asked about these changes, he brushed them off as work stress or my imagination. I wanted to believe him. With the surgery looming, I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to investigate further. The day of my surgery arrived. James drove me to the hospital, squeezed my hand before they wheeled me away, and promised to be there when I woke up. The procedure went well, though the recovery was painful. I was scheduled to stay in the hospital for 3 days. James visited daily, but his visits were brief. He explained that he needed to work and check on Sophia, who was holding down the fort. His distraction was noticeable, but I attributed it to the uncomfortable hospital environment and his dislike of medical settings. On what was supposed to be my final day, my doctor made morning rounds and was impressed with my recovery. With hospital beds in short supply, she offered to discharge me that afternoon instead of the following morning. I was thrilled. Despite the discomfort, I was eager to return to the comfort of my own bed and surprised James with my early arrival. I texted Sophia to ask if she could pick me up, but got no response. I assumed she was busy with interviews or errands. Eventually, I called a rideshare service. As I was wheeled out of the hospital, I felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The driver helped me with my small overnight bag, and I settled into the back seat, wincing slightly at the movement. During the drive home, I imagined James's happy surprise at seeing me earlier than expected. Maybe we could order from our favourite Italian restaurant to celebrate my homecoming. Maybe this shared challenge would be the reset our marriage needed. I had no idea that within the hour, everything I believed about my marriage and my family would be destroyed. The rideshare driver helped me to the door with my bag, making sure I was steady on my feet before leaving. I noticed both James's sleek Audi and Sophia's compact Honda parked in our driveway. Good, I thought they're both home to welcome me back. I unlocked the front door, expecting to hear the television or perhaps conversation from the kitchen. Instead, unfamiliar music drifted through the house, something with a slow, sensual beat that James wouldn't typically listen to. The living room was empty, the kitchen untouched since morning from the looks of the breakfast dishes still in the sink. "James!" I called out. "Sophia, I'm home early." No response. I frowned, setting my bag down by the stairs. The house wasn't that big. Where could they be? I checked the backyard through the kitchen window, thinking maybe they were enjoying the spring weather. Empty. I made my way slowly upstairs, still tender from the surgery. The master bedroom was unoccupied, the bed hastily made. Sophia's guest room door stood open, the room tidy but vacant. The bathroom was empty too. Back downstairs, I stood in the hallway, puzzled. Their cars were here, so they couldn't have gone far. Perhaps they walked to the corner market or the coffee shop. But why wouldn't they respond when I called out? That's when I heard it. A muffled sound from the basement. A laugh quickly hushed, then a low murmur. Our basement was partially finished with a small entertainment area, laundry room, and a storage room where we kept holiday decorations, luggage, and boxes of memorabilia. The sound was coming from the direction of the storage room. I moved toward the basement door, curiosity overriding my physical discomfort. As I descended the stairs carefully, one at a time, the music grew louder. It was coming from a portable speaker on the entertainment area coffee table. Another sound reached my ears, a sigh distinctly feminine, then a deeper masculine groan that I recognized immediately as James's. My heart began to pound so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every instinct told me to turn around, to go back upstairs and pretend I hadn't come home yet. But my feet carried me forward past the entertainment area toward the partially open storage room door. I paused, hand trembling as I reached for the door. Did I really want to see what was happening? Could I handle it? For a moment, I debated calling out again, giving them warning of my presence. But something cold and determined inside me needed to know the truth, needed to see with my own eyes what my heart already suspected. I pushed the door open silently. The storage room was dimly lit by a small lamp we kept there for when we needed to search through boxes, but there was enough light to clearly see my husband and my niece on the old futon we had stored there years ago. They were partially undressed, James's shirt unbuttoned, Sophia's skirt hiked up around her waist. They were so engrossed in each other they didn't notice me standing there watching as my world collapsed. My body reacted physically before my mind could process what I was seeing. My stomach lurched. My surgical incision throbbed with sudden intensity, and I felt lightheaded. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself, still unnoticed by the entwined couple. In that moment, time seemed suspended. I observed details with unnatural clarity. James's hand tangled in Sophia's long hair, so similar in colour to mine. The expression of pleasure on my niece's face, the same face that had looked up to me with admiration when she was younger. The wedding ring on James's finger catching the dim light as he caressed her body. I could have screamed, I could have thrown things or collapsed in tears. I could have demanded explanations or hurled accusations. Any of those reactions would have been justified. Instead, something inside me went very quiet and very cold. With perfect clarity, I knew that causing a scene now would give them the upper hand. They would have time to create excuses to manipulate the narrative. They would see my pain and know exactly how deeply they had wounded me. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Silently, I backed away from the door. My medical training as a former nurse's aide before my marketing career kicked in, reminding me to breathe deeply to prevent fainting. I climbed the stairs slowly, carefully, one hand on the railing, the other pressed against my abdomen. Upstairs, moving with deliberate calm, I went to our bedroom. I took out a small overnight bag, different from the one I had just brought home from the hospital. Into it, I packed essentials, a change of clothes, toiletries, my laptop phone charger. From the hidden compartment in my jewellery box, I retrieved our marriage certificate, my birth certificate, and my passport. From my dresser, I took the small framed photo of my parents on their 20th anniversary, the last picture taken before their accident. I wrapped it in a sweater and tucked it carefully into the bag. I heard a noise downstairs. The music had stopped. James called out, "Sophia, did you hear something?" I froze, then continued my methodical packing. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Then James appeared in the bedroom doorway. His hair was mussed shirt, hastily buttoned and untucked. Behind him hovered Sophia, her face flushed, eyes wide with shock at seeing me. "Eva!" James exclaimed, genuine surprise in his voice. "You're home early. Why didn't you call?" I looked at them both. These two people I had trusted implicitly, and smiled. The smile felt strange on my face, disconnected from the ice spreading through my chest. "I did try to reach Sophia," I said calmly, zipping my bag. No response. Sophia paled. I must have left my phone upstairs." James stepped toward me, confusion mixing with the first signs of panic on his face. "What are you doing? Why are you packing?" I picked up my bag, walked past them both to the stairs. They followed James, reaching for my arm. I sidestepped his touch. "Eva, talk to me," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "What's wrong? Where are you going?" At the front door, I turned to face them one last time. Sophia couldn't meet my eyes. James looked bewildered, as if he genuinely couldn't comprehend what was happening. "I was released early," I said simply. I saw everything. The blood drained from James's face. Sophia made a small, strangled sound. I opened the door, stepped outside into the spring afternoon. The sky was impossibly blue, the air fresh with the scent of blooming flowers from our neighbour's garden. How strange that the world could look so normal when nothing would ever be the same again. "Eva, wait!" James called, starting after me. "It's not what you think. Please, let me explain." I got into my car, placed my bag on the passenger seat, and started the engine. Through the window, I gave them one last smile, a smile that contained all the cold fury and determination building inside me. Then I drove away, leaving them standing in the doorway of what had once been our home. I drove aimlessly, at first muscle memory, taking me through familiar neighbourhoods, while my mind struggled to process what I had witnessed. The image of James and Sophia together kept flashing before my eyes, causing me to grip the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Eventually, I found myself in the parking lot of an upscale hotel near my office. I had attended conferences and client meetings in their ballrooms, but had never stayed there. It seemed as good a place as any to collect my thoughts away from home. The receptionist looked concerned when I approached the desk. Later, I would realize how I must have appeared pale, disheveled, moving gingerly from surgical pain. "Are you all right, Mom?" she asked, as I handed over my credit card. "Just tired," I replied. "I need a room for a few nights." In the elevator, my phone began ringing. James's face appeared on the screen. I declined the call. By the time I reached my room on the 8th floor, he had called 3 more times and sent 6 text messages. "Where are you? Please come home so we can talk." "It's not what you think. I can explain everything. Please answer your phone." "Eva, I'm worried about you. You just had surgery." His sudden concern for my well-being made me laugh bitterly. I silenced my phone and tossed it on the bed. The hotel room was tastefully decorated in neutral tones, impersonal and clean. I set down my bag and finally allowed myself to sit on the edge of the bed. My body was sending urgent signals of pain and exhaustion, but they seemed distant compared to the emotional devastation washing over me. When the first sob came, it felt like being torn apart from the inside. I curled onto my side, clutching a pillow to my abdomen, both for comfort and to brace my incision as I wept. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes swollen until I had no tears left. As the room darkened with evening, I lay staring at the ceiling, memories playing across my mind like scenes from a movie I had never wanted to watch. James and I on our wedding day, so full of hope. James holding my hand through failed pregnancy tests. James and I buying our home, planning our future. And now, James with my niece betraying every promise he had ever made to me. My phone continued to light up with his messages. I finally picked it up, not to respond, but to see what excuses he might be crafting. More of the same desperate pleas and denials. Then a new message arrived from Sophia. "Aunt Eva, I am so sorry. Please let me explain. It was a terrible mistake, a mistake. As if falling into bed with your aunt's husband was like forgetting to return a borrowed sweater." I set the phone down again, too numb to feel new anger. Instead, my analytical mind began to work, examining the situation from different angles. Had there been signs I had missed? How long had this been going on? I opened my laptop and logged into our shared credit card account. Scrolling back through James's purchases over the past few months, patterns emerged. Dinners at restaurants we never visited together, a hotel charge from 2 months ago when he claimed to be at a conference, jewellery purchases that I had never received. Checking our cell phone account revealed hundreds of text messages between James and Sophia's numbers, starting shortly after she moved in. The volume increased dramatically after my surgery. These weren't the actions of 2 people who had made a one-time mistake. This was a calculated, ongoing affair that had likely started before Sophia even moved into our home. The realization made me physically ill. I barely made it to the bathroom before I vomited, the violent heaving sending sharp pains through my healing abdomen. Afterward, I sat on this cold tile floor, trembling, trying to decide what to do next. My first instinct was to call my sister Margaret to tell her what her daughter had done, but our relationship was already strained. Would she even believe me, or would she take Sophia's side, blame me somehow? Instead, I called the one person I knew I could trust completely. Natalie had been my best friend since college, and conveniently was also a successful divorce attorney. When she answered, I couldn't even speak at first. "Eva, are you there?" she asked. "James is having an affair," I finally managed to say, "with Sophia. Your niece, Sophia." The shock in Natalie's voice confirmed the magnitude of the betrayal. "I caught them today, in our storage room." "Oh my God, Eva, where are you now?" I told her about leaving the house, checking into the hotel. "Stay there," she said firmly. "I'm coming over." "Have you eaten anything?" I realised I hadn't eaten since a light breakfast at the hospital. "No, I'll bring food, and Eva, Don't contact either of them. Don't respond to any messages, not until we've talked. After hanging up, I dragged myself into the shower. As the hot water ran over my body, I inspected my surgical incision to make sure my breakdown hadn't done any damage. The neat line of stitches remained intact, the surrounding skin slightly swollen but not alarmingly so. By the time Natalie arrived with containers of soup and salad from my favourite deli, I had changed into clean clothes and was sitting in the armchair by the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk deepened into night. Natalie took one look at me and set the food down to enfold me in a gentle hug. "I am so sorry," she whispered. Her simple kindness nearly broke me again. I clung to her, this friend who had seen me through every major life event, who was now witnessing perhaps the most devastating. "How could they do this?" I asked, my voice small. Natalie shook her head, anger flashing in her eyes. "People are capable of unimaginable selfishness, but right now we need to focus on protecting you." We sat at the small desk in the room eating soup while Natalie outlined what I needed to do immediately. As my friend, she listened and comforted. As my attorney, she was strategic and clear. "First thing tomorrow, we're opening a separate bank account in your name only. You'll transfer half of your joint savings. It's not stealing, it's protecting your fair share." She advised me to document everything forward, all text messages and emails to a secure account, take screenshots of the credit card statements I had found. "What about the house?" I asked. The home I had loved and tended, where I had planned to raise children, now felt tainted beyond redemption. "It's marital property. You're entitled to your share, but we can deal with that later." She paused. "Eva, I have to ask, do you think there's any chance of reconciliation, any part of you that wants to try to work through this?" I considered the question seriously. James had been my partner for a decade. We had weathered difficult times before, but this betrayal with Sophia, the calculated deception, the violation of my home while I was in the hospital recovering from surgery. "No," I said finally. "There's nothing left to save." Natalie nodded, unsurprised. "Then we'll proceed with divorce filings as soon as you're ready." After she left, promising to return in the morning, I finally looked at my phone again. 27 missed calls from James, 15 from Sophia, dozens more messages increasingly desperate. The latest from James read, "Please come home. I love you. Sophia is moving out tonight." It was a terrible mistake that meant nothing. "We can get through this." A terrible mistake that required hundreds of text messages, secret dinners and hotel rooms. A mistake that meant nothing but might have cost me everything. I turned off my phone completely and lay down on the hotel bed, exhaustion finally claiming me, despite the chaos in my mind. My last thought before sleep took me was that when I woke, my life would be irreversibly changed and I would need all my strength to face what came next. The morning brought clarity and purpose. I woke early, my body stiff from tension and surgical recovery, but my mind sharp. Natalie arrived at 8, dressed in a professional suit, carrying a leather portfolio and a tray with 2 coffees. "Ready to take back control?" she asked, handing me a coffee. "More than ready," I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Our first stop was my bank. With Natalie beside me, I opened a new account solely in my name. The bank manager, a woman about my age, maintained professional neutrality, but gave me a sympathetic glance as I explained I needed to transfer funds from my joint account with my husband. 50% only, Natalie emphasised. "We're doing everything by the book." Next, we went to Natalie's office, an elegant space in a high-rise with views of Lake Michigan. Her assistant brought us breakfast, while Natalie outlined a comprehensive legal strategy. "Illinois is a no-fault divorce state," she explained, "but the affair can influence financial settlements, especially given the circumstances with your niece and your recent surgery." She guided me through the initial divorce filing paperwork, explaining each section clearly. When I signed the documents, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. "Now we need to document everything," Natalie said. every text, email, credit card statement. The more evidence we have of the affair, the stronger our position. For the next hour, we created a detailed timeline of James and Sophia's relationship based on the evidence I had found. The earliest suspicious text messages dated back to 3 days after Sophia moved in, nearly 3 weeks before my surgery. The betrayal had been happening right under my nose while I was preoccupied with my health concerns. As we worked, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. I had turned it back on that morning to find 37 missed calls and numerous voicemails. This time, it wasn't James or Sophia, it was my sister Margaret. I looked at Natalie, uncertain. "You should answer," she said. "She deserves to know what her daughter has done." I took a deep breath and accepted the call. "Hello, Margaret." "Eva." My sister's voice was unnaturally bright. "How are you feeling after your surgery? Sophia mentioned you were released early. I was thinking of coming to visit next weekend." The casual conversation felt surreal. Did she really not know, or was she pretending ignorance? "Margaret," I said carefully, "have you spoken to Sophia in the last 24 hours? There was a pause. "No, I tried calling her last night, but she didn't pick up." "Why is something wrong?" I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "I need to tell you something, and it's going to be difficult to hear." "Eva, you're scaring me. What's happened?" "I came home early from the hospital yesterday and found James and Sophia together. They've been having an affair." The silence on the other end of the line was profound. Then came a strangled sound, halfway between a gasp and a sob. "No," Margaret whispered. "She wouldn't do that." "I saw them with my own eyes, Margaret. I have evidence of text messages, hotel bookings, everything." "Oh my God! Oh my God!" My sister's voice broke. "Eva, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry." Her immediate belief and support caught me off guard. Despite our strained relationship, she didn't question my account for a second. "Where are you now?" she asked. "At my attorney's office. I'm filing for divorce." "Of course you are." Another pause. "And Sophia, where is she?" "I don't know. I left the house yesterday and haven't been back." Margaret's voice hardened. "I'm calling her right now. Then I'm booking a flight to Chicago." After ending the call with my sister, I felt a weight lift. Having her believe me without question validated my experience in a way I hadn't realized I needed. Natalie squeezed my hand, "One step at a time. Now, let's contact your HR department to arrange for extended leave." By noon, I had secured 2 additional weeks of medical leave from work. My boss, Andrea, was understanding and discreet when I explained I was dealing with complications from surgery and personal issues. I didn't share details, but her gentle tone suggested she sensed something serious had occurred. "Take the time you need, Eva," she said. "Your position is secure and we can redistribute your projects temporarily." After leaving Natalie's office with a clear action plan, I returned to the hotel to find a massive bouquet of red roses waiting for me at the reception desk. The card read simply, "I'm sorry. Please come home so we can talk. I love you, James." The receptionist smiled as she handed them to me. "Someone's trying to get out of the doghouse, huh?" I accepted the flowers with a tight smile, took them to my room, and promptly deposited them in the trash can. Minutes later, a new text from James arrived. "Did you get the flowers? Please talk to me. This isn't like you, Eva. We've always communicated through problems." Sophia is gone. She's staying with a friend. It was a horrible mistake that just happened. It didn't mean anything. The carefully crafted message was designed to make me question myself. Wasn't I being unreasonable by refusing to talk? Wasn't I acting out of character by not trying to work through this problem? The subtle manipulation made my blood boil. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on silence. As Natalie had advised, any communication now should only happen through attorneys. That afternoon, I had my first appointment with a therapist Natalie had recommended. Dr. Linnea Fisher specialized in trauma and betrayal, and her warm office immediately put me at ease. "Tell me what brought you here today, Eva," she said, after introductions. I recounted the events of the past 24 hours, surprised by my ability to narrate them without breaking down. Dr. Fisher listened attentively, occasionally nodding. "You've experienced a profound betrayal," she said when I finished. "Not just by your husband, but by a family member you trusted. It's a double breach of faith that can be particularly traumatic." We discussed my immediate emotional needs and coping strategies. Dr. Fisher validated my decision to leave immediately rather than confront them in the moment. "That was a protective instinct," she said. "You removed yourself from a volatile situation to process what happened safely." As our session continued, deeper issues emerged. I admitted that despite the shock, a part of me wasn't entirely surprised by James's infidelity. There had been emotional distance growing between us for years, not just since our fertility struggles. He started pulling away long before Sophia arrived, I realized aloud. The fertility treatments just gave him an excuse. Dr. Fisher nodded. "Sometimes these painful revelations bring clarity about patterns we've been subconsciously aware of, but haven't acknowledged." By the end of the session, I felt emotionally drained but more centered. We scheduled another appointment for 2 days later, and Dr. Fisher gave me techniques for managing anxiety and intrusive thoughts. In the meantime, back at the hotel, I found a message from Margaret. She had booked a flight to Chicago and would arrive the following afternoon. She had spoken briefly to Sophia, who had broken down in tears, and confirmed the affair. "She tried to justify it," Margaret wrote. "Said they connected while you were focused on your health issues. I told her there is no justification for what she did. I'm so sorry, Eva. I raised her better than this." That evening alone in my hotel room, I began planning the inevitable confrontation with James. With Natalie's legal guidance and Dr. Fisher's emotional support, I felt stronger than I had 24 hours earlier. The initial shock was subsiding, replaced by a cool determination to protect myself and move forward with dignity. I opened my laptop and began writing a detailed account of everything that had happened, everything I had discovered. The act of documenting my experience was therapeutic, converting raw pain into structured narrative. This wasn't just for legal purposes now. This was reclaiming my story. As night fell over Chicago, I stood at the hotel window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there was the home I had shared with James, the life I had built that now lay in ruins. But also, out there was a future I couldn't yet imagine, one I would have to build from these broken pieces. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a flicker of something that wasn't pain or anger, not quite hope perhaps, but possibility. The possibility that someday this devastating chapter would be just that, a chapter, not the whole story of my life. I spent the following morning preparing for what I knew would be an intense confrontation. Natalie had advised me not to return to the house alone, but with Margaret arriving that afternoon, I decided to wait and have her accompany me. There was something fitting about facing James with my sister by my side, a united front of the family he and Sophia had betrayed. Margaret's flight landed at 2. When she emerged from the arrivals gate, I barely recognized her. My normally put-together sister looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, her shoulders hunched as if bearing a physical weight. When she saw me, she rushed forward and enveloped me in a fierce hug. "I am so sorry," she whispered against my hair. We held each other tightly in the middle of the bustling airport, two sisters reconnecting through shared pain. It was the closest I had felt to Margaret in years. In the taxi back to my hotel, Margaret filled me in on her conversation with Sophia. She tried to tell me it just happened, that they never meant to hurt you. I asked her how something just happens for weeks without anyone making a conscious choice. Margaret's voice was tight with anger. She kept saying James was lonely because you were distant with your health issues, as if that justifies anything. "Did she say how long it's been going on?" I asked. Margaret nodded grimly. "Since about a week after she moved in. She claims James initiated it, but she couldn't help how she felt." I raised her to be stronger than this, to have more integrity. The pain in my sister's voice mirrored my own. We were both grappling with profound disappointment in people we loved. Back at the hotel, we ordered room service and finalized our plan. We would go to the house that evening. Margaret would collect Sophia's belongings. I would speak with James briefly to outline next steps regarding the divorce and the house. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Margaret asked as we prepared to leave. "We could wait another day." I shook my head. I need to face him, on my terms, not his. The drive to my house was surreal. Familiar streets took on a dreamlike quality as we approached the home that no longer felt like mine. James's car was in the driveway. Sophia's was gone. "Ready?" Margaret asked as we pulled up. I took a deep breath. "Ready." I used my key to enter. The house was unnaturally quiet and impeccably clean, as if James had been frantically tidying up. The scent of lemon furniture polish hung in the air. "James!" I called out. He appeared from the kitchen so quickly he must have been waiting nearby. The sight of him hit me harder than I had expected. He looked terrible, unshaven and hollow-eyed, wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago. "Eva," he breathed relief washing over his face. Then he noticed Margaret behind me, and the relief transformed into apprehension. "Margaret, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to support my sister," she said coldly, "and to collect my daughter's things." James flinched. "Sophia's staying with a friend. She's devastated Eva. We both are. This has all been a terrible misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," I repeated, my voice steady. "I saw you with my niece in our storage room. What exactly did I misunderstand?" He moved toward me, hands outstretched pleadingly. It was a moment of weakness. "It didn't mean anything. I love you, Eva. You're my wife. And that's why you've been sleeping with my niece for weeks, because you love me so much." The sarcasm felt foreign on my tongue, but it was better than the screaming I wanted to do. "It wasn't like that," he insisted. "It just happened a few times. We were both lonely. You were so focused on your surgery, the fertility treatments before that. So this is my fault." My voice rose slightly. "I was dealing with medical issues, trying to build our family, and that justifies betraying me with a family member 20 years younger than you." James ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "No, that's not what I meant. There's no justification. It was wrong. I know that. But people make mistakes, Eva. Horrible mistakes they regret. We can get past this. We can go to counselling." His desperation might have been convincing if I hadn't seen the evidence of the ongoing affair, the hotel bookings, the gifts, the hundreds of messages. "This wasn't a mistake, James. It was a choice, many choices made day after day." I kept my voice even, refusing to give him the emotional outburst he was probably expecting. "I've filed for divorce. My attorney will be contacting yours." The word divorce seemed to shock him into reality. His face paled. "You can't be serious. 10 years of marriage and you're throwing it away without even trying to work through this." "I'm not the one who threw it away," I said quietly. Before James could respond, the front door opened. Sophia walked in freezing when she saw Margaret and me. "Mum," she squeaked, "what are you doing here?" Margaret crossed her arms. "Picking up your things. You're coming home with me until we figure out what to do about your complete lack of judgment and morality." Sophia's eyes darted to James, then back to us. "I can explain. It wasn't just some sordid affair. We have real feelings for each other." The declaration hung in the air like a toxic cloud. James looked stricken. "Sophia, don't," he said quietly. "This isn't helping." "Don't what? Tell the truth." Tears welled in her eyes. "You told me you weren't happy that you and Aunt Eva had been growing apart for years. You said you'd never felt this way about anyone, not even her." Each word was a fresh cut. I watched James's face as he realized the narrative he had crafted of a meaningless mistake made in lonely moments was crumbling. "Is that true, James?" I asked. "Were you planning to leave me for my niece?" "No," he exclaimed. Sophia, you're twisting things I said. I was confused, unhappy, but I never said I would leave Eva. Sophia's face crumpled. So you were lying to me too, using me. The living room had become a battleground of betrayal and counter-betrayal. I felt strangely detached, as if watching a particularly melodramatic play. I think we've heard enough, Margaret said firmly. Sophia, go pack your things. Now. As Sophia fled upstairs, James turned to me, desperate. Eva, please, don't listen to her. She's young. She got carried away with her feelings. It was my fault. I took advantage of the situation, but I never planned to leave you. I love you. Stop saying that, I said, surprising myself with the ice in my voice. If you loved me, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Margaret interjected. I'm going to help Sophia pack. Eva, will you be okay down here? I nodded and she headed upstairs, leaving me alone with the man who had once been the centre of my world. James sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I've ruined everything, he murmured. Yes, you have. I remained standing, unwilling to share even the couch with him now. He looked up, eyes wet. What can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this. You can't fix this, James. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. I reached into my purse and removed a folder Natalie had prepared. These are the divorce papers. Your copy. Mine have already been filed. He stared at the folder as if it might bite him. Just like that, 10 years over, just like that. It wasn't just like that. It was every secret text, every lie, every time you chose her over our marriage. I placed the folder on the coffee table. I'll be staying elsewhere until arrangements can be made for the house. I've taken only personal items. The rest we can divide through our attorneys. James stood suddenly. This isn't you, Eva. You don't make cold, calculated decisions like this. You believe in second chances, in working things out. Who's been putting these ideas in your head? Is it your friend Natalie, your sister? His attempt to question my agency, to suggest I wasn't capable of making these decisions myself, ignited a rage I had been suppressing. This is exactly me, James. This is me protecting myself from further harm. This is me refusing to be manipulated and gaslighted by someone who betrayed me in the worst possible way. I stepped closer, my voice low and intense. You don't get to tell me who I am anymore. You lost that right when you decided to sleep with my niece in our home while I was recovering from surgery. The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted us. Margaret and Sophia descended, each carrying a suitcase. Sophia's face was blotchy from crying, but she held her chin high, a posture of defiance that couldn't quite hide her shame. We're leaving, Margaret announced. James made a move toward Sophia. Sophia, Don't, Margaret warned. Not another word to my daughter. I gathered my purse, ready to follow them out. As I reached the door, I turned back to James one last time. The man standing in our living room looked like a stranger, someone I had never really known. Goodbye, James, I said simply. Outside, the spring evening was mild, the scent of blooming flowers drifting from neighbouring yards. Margaret loaded Sophia's suitcase into the trunk while my niece slumped in the back seat of the rental car, face turned away. Will you be okay going back to the hotel alone? Margaret asked me. I can drive you. I'll be fine, I assured her. I need some time to process everything. Margaret hugged me tightly. I'll call you tomorrow before our flight. And Eva, thank you for not hating me because of what Sophia did. You're my sister, I said. We've lost enough already. As Margaret drove away with Sophia, I stood on the sidewalk, looking at the house James and I had shared. The home I had loved, where I had planned to raise children, now felt like a monument to betrayal. Yet, as I got into my car and drove away, I felt a curious lightness. The confrontation had gone as well as it could have, and each step forward, however painful, was a step toward healing. In the weeks following the confrontation, I embarked on what my therapist, Dr. Fisher, called the hard work of rebuilding. Each day brought new challenges, new emotional hurdles to overcome, but also unexpected moments of strength and clarity. Margaret and Sophia returned to Boston the day after our confrontation. Before leaving, my sister and I had breakfast alone, solidifying the fragile reconnection that had begun through our shared pain. "I don't know if I'll ever understand how she could do this," Margaret said, stirring her coffee absently. "I've raised her to be better than this." "People make devastating choices," I replied, thinking of Dr. Fisher's words. "It doesn't mean you failed as a mother." Margaret reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the same time I got so heartbroken," I answered with a sad smile. We promised to stay in closer contact, to not let the years and miles create distance again. It was one small positive in the midst of so much loss. With Natalie's help, I secured a month-to-month rental apartment in a high-rise downtown. The sterile modern space was nothing like the warm brownstone I had shared with James, and that was precisely what I needed. No memories, no echoes of broken promises, just clean lines and empty spaces waiting to be filled with whatever life I chose to create. Moving day was harder than anticipated. I had arranged to collect my personal belongings while James was at work, but standing in our bedroom selecting what to take and what to leave felt like performing surgery on my own heart. Each item carried memories, associations, emotional weight. Natalie had insisted on coming with me, and her practical presence kept me focused when I might have dissolved into tears. "Just the essentials for now," she reminded me gently as I lingered over photo albums. "We can arrange for the rest later." I left most of the furniture, kitchen items and decorative pieces. They were just things replaceable. What I carefully packed were the irreplaceable family heirlooms photographs. From before James' artwork, I had collected books that had shaped me. The movers loaded everything efficiently, and within 3 hours, a decade of my life was extracted from the house and transferred to my new apartment. As I locked up, leaving my key on the kitchen counter, I took one last look around. Despite the missing items, the house still looked like a home, just not mine anymore. The finality of the moment hit me, and I allowed myself 30 seconds of grief before walking out the door. The divorce proceedings moved forward with the glacial pace of legal matters. James initially contested, claiming the affair was a momentary lapse and not grounds for ending the marriage. His attorney proposed counselling, a cooling-off period, anything to slow the process. Natalie was magnificent, coolly professional, but fiercely protective of my interests. "He wants to drain your emotional resources, make this so exhausting you'll give in," she warned me. "Don't engage directly. Let me handle everything." 2 months into the separation, James finally accepted the inevitability of divorce. His attorney contacted Natalie about a settlement. The proposal was surprisingly generous, offering me the house, which I didn't want, a substantial financial settlement, and an apology for the pain caused by his indiscretion. "He's hoping to buy his way back into your good graces," Natalie observed, "or at least buy a cleaner conscience." I instructed her to counter with terms that included selling the house and splitting the proceeds. I didn't want to live there, and I certainly didn't want it as a guilt payment. What I wanted was freedom, a clean break, financially and emotionally. While the legal details were being negotiated, I focused on healing. Dr. Fisher guided me through the complex emotions of betrayal, trauma, helping me understand that the anger, grief, and anxiety I experienced were normal responses to abnormal events. "You're not overreacting," she assured me during one particularly difficult session. "The depth of your pain reflects the depth of your trust and commitment. That's something to honour, not apologise for." Under her guidance, I joined a support group for people dealing with infidelity. The first meeting was terrifying. I sat in a circle of strangers, clutching a paper cup of terrible coffee, wondering what I could possibly say about my unique situation. But as others shared their stories, the specifics different, but the pain so familiar, I felt the isolation that had surrounded me begin to crack. When it was my turn to speak, I simply said, "My husband had an affair with my niece while I was recovering from surgery." The collective intake of breath told me that even in this group accustomed to betrayal stories, mine stood out. Yet instead of judgment or pity, I received understanding and validation. By the end of that first session, I had exchanged numbers with two women who would become crucial parts of my support network. One of them, Diana, invited me to join her for a pottery class. Getting your hands dirty is therapeutic, she insisted. I hadn't created art since college, but the feel of clay between my fingers awakened something dormant inside me. Each week, I looked forward to those 3 hours of creative focus when my mind could rest from the constant processing of trauma. My first completed bowl was lopsided and imperfect, but I displayed it proudly in my new apartment. It represented something made entirely by me for me in my new life. Work became another anchor. After my extended medical leave, I returned to find my team and boss supportive but not invasive. Andrea took me to lunch my first day back and simply said, "We're glad you're here. Whatever you need, just ask." The normalcy of client meetings, strategy sessions, and creative challenges was comforting. My professional identity had remained intact when my personal one had shattered. 4 months after Discovery Day, an unexpected opportunity arose at work. Our agency was opening a new office in Seattle, and Andrea approached me about relocating to lead the marketing team there. "It's a promotion and a fresh start," she said. "No pressure, but I think you'd be perfect for it." The timing couldn't have been more serendipitous. The divorce was nearly finalized, the house was under contract with buyers, and Chicago felt increasingly like a city full of landmines of memory. I asked for a week to consider the offer. That weekend, I met Dr. Fisher for coffee outside our regular session. "What do you think?" I asked after explaining the opportunity. "Am I running away if I take it?" She considered this thoughtfully. "There's a difference between running away and moving forward. Running away is reactive, driven by fear. Moving forward is proactive, driven by hope and possibility." She stirred her latte. "Which do you feel this is?" I reflected on the question. 6 months ago, I would have been running away, desperate to escape the pain. Now I think I'm ready for something new, not because I'm afraid to stay, but because I'm curious about what else might be possible. Dr. Fisher smiled. "That sounds like moving forward to me." I accepted the position the following Monday. The timeline was quick, with the move scheduled for 6 weeks later. The company would assist with relocation, finding an apartment, all the logistics. It felt like the universe was conspiring to help me begin again. As news of my impending move spread, surprising connections emerged. My sister Margaret called to tell me she was considering a sabbatical from her teaching position. "I could come to Seattle for a few months," she suggested. "We could have that time together we've been talking about." Our weekly phone calls had gradually rebuilt the bridge between us. We spoke carefully around the topic of Sophia, who had moved into her own apartment and was, according to Margaret, doing a lot of growing up the hard way. Then came an entirely unexpected development. At a therapy group session, I mentioned my upcoming move. Afterward, Dr. Fisher's brother Michael, who occasionally drove her to the centre, was waiting in the lobby. We had exchanged polite greetings several times, but nothing more. "Seattle," he said, overhearing my conversation with another group member. "I lived there for 5 years during my residency. It's a wonderful city." Michael was a pediatric surgeon a few years older than me, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence. We ended up talking for 30 minutes about Seattle neighborhoods, hidden gem restaurants, and the particular quality of the Pacific Northwest light. Before I left, he hesitated, then said, "I'd be happy to tell you more about the city sometime, maybe over coffee." The invitation hung in the air between us. I knew Dr. Fisher had strict boundaries about dual relationships, but this felt different, separate from my therapeutic relationship with her. "I'd like that," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Our coffee meeting turned into dinner, which turned into a genuine connection that neither of us pushed or defined. Michael understood trauma and healing from both professional and personal experience, having lost his wife to cancer years earlier. He respected my boundaries, never rushed me, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings beyond my story of betrayal. When I shared my concerns about the ethical complications with Dr. Fisher, she assured me that while she couldn't be my therapist if I developed a relationship with her brother, she fully supported whatever brought healing and joy into my life. Betrayal tries to teach us that we're unworthy of love, she said during our final session. The most powerful rebuttal is to discover that we are still entirely capable of both giving and receiving it in whatever forms feel right. The day before my move to Seattle, Michael helped me pack the last of my belongings. We had agreed to stay in touch to see where our connection might lead without the pressure of proximity or expectation. It wasn't a romance, not yet, but it was a door opening to possibilities I had thought might be closed forever. That same day, the divorce was finalized. James had made one last attempt to reconcile, sending a letter filled with promises and apologies. Reading it, I felt a strange compassion for him, not because I forgave what he had done, but because I recognized the desperation of someone facing the consequences of their choices. I didn't respond. The movers came early the next morning. As they loaded the last boxes into the truck, I stood in the empty apartment that had been my transitional home. In the months since Discovery Day, I had cried here, raged here, begun to heal here. Now I was leaving not just this space, but the entire chapter of my life that had included James. My phone chimed with a text from my sister. "Safe travels. Can't wait to see your new place in a few weeks." Another from Natalie. "Proud of you, warrior woman. Seattle isn't ready for you." And one from Michael. "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Enjoy each one." As I locked the apartment door and handed the key to the building manager, I felt neither triumph nor sadness, but a quiet certainty that I was exactly where I needed to be on my path. The betrayal would always be part of my story, but it no longer defined it. I got into my car, programmed the GPS for Seattle, and drove toward the horizon, toward whatever waited beyond it. 1 year after that fateful day, when I returned home early from the hospital, I stood on the balcony of my Seattle apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant pinks and golds over Puget Sound. The beauty still took my breath away, even after months of living here. My new home was smaller than the Chicago brownstone, but filled with light and carefully chosen items that reflected who I had become. The pottery collection had expanded, joined by local artwork and photographs from weekend explorations of the Pacific Northwest. The walls were painted in serene blues and greens colors that I had always loved, but James had found too cold. Every corner of this space was authentically mine, a physical manifestation of my reclaimed identity. My professional life had flourished in unexpected ways. Leading the Seattle office had presented challenges that pushed me beyond my comfort zone, requiring me to develop new skills and perspectives. Our client portfolio had grown steadily under my direction, and Andrea had recently approved my proposal for an innovative community engagement program targeting local startups. "You're doing exceptional work here," she had said during her last visit from Chicago. This move was clearly the right choice for everyone. My personal transformation had been equally profound. Weekly therapy with a new counselor helped me continue the healing work I had begun with Dr. Fisher. The support group in Seattle welcomed me warmly, and I found myself transitioning from someone seeking help to someone able to offer it to newer members. My relationship with my sister Margaret had deepened during her 3-month sabbatical in Seattle. We explored the city together, hiked mountain trails, and had long conversations over wine about our childhood, our parents, and our shared grief over Sophia's betrayal. Margaret had initially struggled with guilt, wondering if she had somehow failed as a mother. "You raised her with values and love," I assured her one evening as we watched the sunset from this same balcony. Her choices were her own. I still can't believe she would hurt you like that, Margaret said, her voice tight. You were always so good to her. People cause the most pain to those they know will love them anyway, I replied, a hard-won insight from months of therapy. Sophia and I had no direct contact. According to Margaret, she had moved to New York for a fresh start, finding work at a small marketing firm and attending therapy regularly. She had sent one letter of apology 6 months after the affair, a 3-page handwritten outpouring of remorse and self-recrimination. I read it once, acknowledged the pain behind it, and filed it away without responding. Forgiveness was a personal process, not an obligation I owed to ease her conscience. As for James, his life had taken a downward spiral after our divorce. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard he had been passed over for a promotion, started drinking heavily, and briefly dated Sophia, before that relationship imploded under the weight of guilt and public disapproval. His most recent attempt to contact me had come 3 months ago. A rambling email sent late at night, filled with nostalgia and regret. I didn't respond to that either. Some doors were meant to remain closed. My own journey toward new relationships had progressed with cautious optimism. Michael and I maintained contact after my move, our connection deepening through long phone conversations and occasional visits. He understood my need for independence and healing, never pushing for definitions or commitments before I was ready. When he accepted a consulting position at Seattle Children's Hospital 4 months after my relocation, it felt like timing rather than pressure. Now, our relationship was quietly evolving into something meaningful and healthy. We enjoyed simple pleasures together, hiking, cooking, attending symphony performances, but also respected each other's need for separate spaces and individual growth. The trust I had thought permanently damaged was slowly rebuilding, not through dramatic declarations, but through consistent honesty and respect. You know what I admire most about you, Michael had asked last week as we walked along Alki Beach. Your resilience. Not just surviving what happened, but refusing to let it diminish your capacity for joy. His observation touched me deeply because it acknowledged both my pain and my strength, seeing me as whole rather than defined by betrayal. The doorbell interrupted my sunset reflection. Michael arrived carrying takeout from our favourite Thai restaurant and a small potted orchid. For your collection, he said, setting it beside the others flourishing on my windowsill. The care I gave these delicate plants had become a metaphor for my own healing, a reminder that beautiful things could thrive with patience and attention. Over dinner, I shared news about an email I had received that morning from a publisher. The blog I had started about betrayal and recovery, initially just for my own processing, had gained a substantial following. Now they were interested in developing it into a book. They said my voice brings hope to a topic usually shrouded in shame. I explained, still amazed by this unexpected development. They're right, Michael said, his pride evident. You've found meaning in your experience without romanticizing the pain. That's rare and valuable. Later, after Michael left with plans to meet the following evening, I sat alone with my thoughts and a journal. This anniversary date had loomed large in my mind for weeks. I had prepared for waves of grief or anger, but instead found myself reflecting with surprising calm on the journey of the past year. The betrayal had shattered my life in ways I never could have anticipated. It had tested my strength, my faith in others, my very sense of self. There were still moments when the pain surfaced unexpectedly, when trust felt fragile, when memories ambushed me in unguarded moments. Yet those moments no longer defined me. They were part of my story, but not its conclusion. What had emerged from the wreckage was a woman I might never have become, otherwise someone more authentic, more compassionate, more attuned to her own needs and boundaries. In my journal I wrote, "The greatest betrayal would have been to allow their actions to destroy my capacity for joy, connection, and trust. By reclaiming these, I've found freedom they can never take away. I closed the journal and returned to the balcony, watching the last glow of sunset fade into twilight. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky, reminders of constant light, even in darkness. A text chimed on my phone. My sister, thinking of you today, love you. I smiled, typing back, I'm okay, better than okay, love you too. And it was true. The path forward wasn't perfect or painless, but it was authentically mine, shaped by choices rather than reactions. The woman who had smiled and walked away from betrayal a year ago could never have imagined the life she would create from those broken pieces. That was perhaps the most powerful lesson of all, that our darkest moments don't define our stories unless we allow them to. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air, filling my lungs with possibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities to choose courage over fear, and I was ready for all of it. If you've ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. What helped you find strength when you needed it most? Did you discover parts of yourself you never knew existed? Please like and subscribe. If this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible even after the deepest wounds. Thank you for being part of my journey. Remember that your story isn't over and the best chapters may still be unwritten.